My wife announced she wanted a divorce in front of her friends, right there in a coffee shop. For women at one table, zero shame. They clearly expected me to fall apart, to plead. Instead, I thanked them for making it a group decision and walked out, carrying screenshots of everything they'd been planning for months. I'm 36. I was married to Celia for 6 years, and honestly, most of that time was good. She was driven. I was stable. I paid the mortgage while she built her corporate department from the ground up. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. We worked. I wasn't flashy or loud. I was the guy who showed up, the guy who listened when she talked about her goals and where she wanted her life to go. Then, about a year ago, something changed. She joined this professional development group with Brian, Taylor, and Ada. Almost overnight, she started coming home later, dressing differently, talking nonstop about leveling up and expanding her network. Those friends went from occasional brunch plans to permanent fixtures in her life. Always texting, always advising, always in her head. The woman who used to curl up beside me on the couch started treating our house like a hotel. In and out. No warmth. No presence. I ignored it. After 7 years, you don't expect your wife to suddenly turn against you. Then came the day. Celia texted and asked if we could meet for coffee. Nothing alarming. I actually thought she wanted to reconnect. So I showed up expecting my wife. Instead, I walked in and saw her sitting with Brian, Taylor, and Ada, all 4 of them waiting, lined up like an intervention panel. I sat down. Celia looked at me with that rehearsed, sympathetic expression. "This isn't working anymore," she said. "The marriage. Us." She gestured between us like our 7 years together were just some failed startup experiment. Brian leaned forward and said I didn't seem happy, that Celia deserved someone who truly appreciated her growth journey. Taylor nodded along, talking about aligned energy and shared vision. Ada didn't even look up from her phone, just scrolling. Like my marriage ending was content. She might eventually monetize. I stared at the 3 women who had apparently held a board meeting about my life. So I asked if this was a group decision. Celia looked uncomfortable for maybe 2 seconds, before saying it was better to end things now, before someone got hurt. That's when I asked who he was. The table went dead silent. Celia switched to that condescending tone and said this wasn't about anyone else, that we just weren't compatible anymore. After 7 years, suddenly incompatible. The others jumped in with their scripted lines about people evolving and relationships running their course. I stood up, left a 20 on the table, and said, "Thanks for the group decision. I really appreciate the democratic approach to ending my marriage." Then I walked out. Through the window, I saw them huddle together. I was almost at my truck when I heard Brian say, "See, he didn't even fight for you." Taylor agreed, said there was no passion, no effort. Ada added that a real man would have tried harder. I stood there listening as they rewrote reality in real time, turning my refusal to beg into proof that I never cared. They made one critical mistake. They underestimated the quiet guy who pays the bills. The drive home gave me 25 minutes to process everything. 7 years ended in a public coffee shop, with an audience treating my life like their personal soap opera. When I got home, I started making lists, bank accounts, credit cards, subscriptions. She had 6 cards tied our joint account, draining it nonstop. Then I remembered the iPad. We had a shared one for household stuff. It lived on the kitchen counter. We both used it. I picked it up and opened messages, still sent to Celia's iCloud. Every text she sent from her phone was sitting right there. I already suspected there was another guy. Alex. Trust fund kid. Vintage luxury car. I'd seen him at her networking events. The way she lit up around him. How her style shifted. Late dinners that always seemed to include him. I started scrolling. The messages with Alex went back months. Compliments, inside jokes. Then plans to meet up. Complaints about her boring husband. Conversations about when she should finally leave me. I took screenshots of everything. But the real gold mine was a group chat titled The Group Chat. Celia, Brian, Taylor, and Ada. I scrolled back 5 months, Brian asking when Celia was actually going to do it, saying she couldn't keep stalling forever. Celia replying that she needed to time it right, that everything had to be financially secure, that she couldn't afford to look like the villain. They'd choreographed the entire thing. The coffee shop because it was public. One afternoon because I'd be mentally drained. Who would say what? What Celia should wear. I screenshotted all of it, backed it up to 3 different cloud drives. Then I pulled our phone records, late night calls to Alex, texts at 2 and 3 in the morning. Days she claimed to be at client meetings, but spent hours on the phone with someone who clearly wasn't a client. I built a spreadsheet. The numbers told a story she couldn't talk her way out of. Celia called later to discuss logistics. The house, the accounts, how we were handling the separation. She said she was staying at Brian's place and that we should meet with lawyers soon. Her tone had shifted. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was business. I told her sure. Whatever she thought was best. She paused, probably waiting for more resistance, then said she was glad I was being mature about it. If she only knew what I was looking at. She said she'd stop by the next day at noon to grab some clothes. I told her I'd take a half day off. She thanked me for making things easy. After the call, I opened our bank statements. Hotel charges on weekends she claimed were conferences, restaurant bills from places she never mentioned, an $800 jewelry purchase. I never got any jewelry. I downloaded everything. The next day, I packed all of Celia's things into black trash bags, clothes, shoes, makeup, every piece of clutter she left behind. I stacked them by the front door. My belongings were locked in my office. My grandfather's pocket watch, my dad's signed book, my Xbox, photo albums. All secure. She arrived at noon. Alex's luxury car sitting in my driveway. Real subtle. I opened the door before she could use her key and blocked the entrance. She put on that practiced, wounded expression. She said she was just there for her things. Said we should keep this civil. I told her it already was. I pointed at the trash bags by the door. Everything's packed. Take it and go. Her face changed instantly. The sad, wounded act vanished. She stared at the bags like she couldn't believe I'd actually done it. Trash bags felt fitting. Kate stepped out of his car and walked up, holding his hands out like he was a mediator, telling everyone to stay calm. I asked who invited him. Celia said he was just there to help her move. Just a friend. Right. Just a friend. Her mask slipped for a second. She snapped that I was being dramatic and that they were only friends. So told her I had hotel receipts, text logs, and credit card statements, that she'd been sleeping with this guy for 4 months. I told her to at least have the spine to admit it. She went quiet. Kate suddenly looked very uncomfortable. I laid it out clearly. She takes her bags and leaves. He stays in the car. He is not stepping foot inside my house. She refused. Said she wasn't taking her belongings in trash bags. That ship had sailed. She pointed inside, saying she was taking the coffee maker and the kitchen table. I told her no. I had receipts for everything. The coffee maker was mine, bought 2 years before I ever met her. The table was a wedding gift from my aunt. Everything that actually belonged to her was already packed. Her voice sharpened. Said I couldn't just decide that. I told her I wasn't deciding. The receipts were, and if she wanted to argue, we could wait for the cops. I had plenty of time. Kate put his hand on her shoulder and suggested they should just take what I'd packed. I laughed. Now he was giving advice. I asked him if he always helps his friends move out of their marriages, or if this was some premium service. He stammered. I told him he was trespassing. Gave him 30 seconds to get back into his luxury car before I called the police and let them sort out why my wife's affair partner was on my property uninvited. He actually backed away. The guy bold enough to sleep with another man's wife couldn't handle direct confrontation. He told Celia he'd wait in the car, and he just walked off. Celia watched him go. Her expression shifted from shock to pure rage. She called me a coward, petty, controlling, said everyone would find out what kind of person I really was. Good. I told her to tell them. Post it everywhere. Let the world know that when she cheated, I didn't beg her to stay. I was fine with that version of the story. She grabbed 2 bags, struggled under the weight, too proud to make a second trip. She said I'd hear from her lawyers. I told her I was looking forward to it. Mine already had copies of everything. She froze. Asked if I'd copied her texts. I told her cloud backups are a beautiful thing, especially when someone doesn't understand how they work. I could see it hit her. Every message, every plan, every lie. Her hands started shaking. She shoved the bags into Alex's trunk. He didn't even get out to help. They drove off. I stood there until the luxury car disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside, sat at my kitchen table, and finished my inventory list. 20 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. Mutual friends asking what happened. Celia was already posting vague statements about toxic men. I let her post fiction while my lawyer stapled it to facts. 2 weeks later, my boss called me into his office. Said we needed to discuss something sensitive. His expression had that corporate mix of concern and legal caution. The look that means someone complained. HR had received an anonymous report. Allegations of inappropriate workplace behavior. Harassment, creating a hostile environment, making female coworkers uncomfortable. My stomach dropped because I immediately knew who did it. The complaint was dated 2 days after I kicked Celia out. Vague details, but damaging accusations. Claims that I made inappropriate comments, stood too close, made women feel unsafe. Complete nonsense. I worked in project management. 6 people on my team. 3 women I'd worked with for 4 years. Always professional. 0 issues. I told my boss it was fabricated. He said that's what they needed to determine. Until then, I was being placed on administrative leave, paid. Standard procedure. Could be a week, maybe 2. I drove home trying to process the fact that Celia had tried to destroy my career because I wouldn't let her take my coffee maker. My phone buzzed. A text from a hidden number. Bet you regret being such a jerk now. Should have just let me take what I wanted. Could have avoided all this, but you had to be difficult. Actions have consequences. I screenshotted it, saved it, backed it up. That text was everything. Proof she was behind the complaint. Proof she'd weaponized HR out of spite. I called my lawyers immediately. They said the message was an admission of malicious interference. If the complaint was proven false, she'd open herself up to serious legal trouble. They told me to do nothing. Let the investigation play out. Document everything. When HR cleared me, we'd use this. 8 days of absolute torture. I couldn't work, couldn't focus. My coworkers were being interviewed about things that never happened. My lawyers told me to stay off social media. Don't respond. Don't defend myself publicly. Meanwhile, Celia was posting about finding her voice and standing up to toxic men. Brian, Taylor, and Ada filled the comments with heart emojis and empowerment slogans. A performance for an audience watching pure fiction. I screenshotted every post. On the 8th day, my boss called, told me to come in the next morning. HR wanted to meet. I arrived at 9. Conference room, HR director, my boss, legal present. They said the investigation was complete. They'd interviewed my entire team, reviewed security footage, checked my emails and internal chats. They found nothing. Every single person vouched for my professionalism. The relief hit me all at once. I was fully cleared. Full back pay, no record. They take false accusations seriously. I told them I knew who filed it and that I could prove it. I showed them the text. Celia's number was traceable despite her attempt to hide it. The timestamp lined up perfectly. The wording was unmistakable. The lawyer looked annoyed, like Celia had just wasted a lot of billable hours. They told me to keep documenting everything and let their legal team handle the workplace side. My attorney sent Celia a cease and desist. I filed a police report so there was an official paper trail. My legal team was practically thrilled. This was perfect. Between the affair evidence, the fake HR complaint, and her own admission by text, Celia had 0 leverage left. We pushed for a full separation of assets. She'd walk away with exactly what she brought into the marriage, and nothing more. The divorce papers reached her a month later, served at Brian's place, 8 in the morning. She called me screaming within 30 minutes. I told her I wasn't suing her. I was divorcing her. Big difference. The papers included damages tied to the HR complaint. That's what happens when you file false reports. Actions have consequences. Celia dot her words, not mine. She insisted she never admitted to anything. I told her I had a text that said otherwise. My lawyers had it. HR had it. The police had it. Everyone except her seemed to understand how evidence works. She hung up. 3 days later, her attorney called. They wanted to discuss settlement terms. I wasn't interested. Maybe mediation, they said. Something fair for both sides. Fair would have been not cheating. Fair would have been not trying to ruin my career. So no. I told them I'd see them in court. Discovery was beautiful. My legal team legally requested records everything. Phone records showing months of contact with Alex, credit card statements with hotel stays and expensive dinners, the group texts with her friends planning, the entire breakup, and the message admitting to the HR stunt. We laid it all out. Celia's lawyers tried every angle. They argued she deserved half the value of the house. My team countered with payment records showing I'd covered the mortgage alone for 8 months while she blew our money on affairs and designer handbags. They claimed she sacrificed her career for the marriage. My attorneys pulled her consulting records, showing she barely worked at all. Too busy with Alex to keep clients, they tried to label me controlling. My team produced texts where she bragged about spending my money and laughed about hiding purchases. Every argument collapsed under actual evidence. The judge wasn't impressed. Court records are public, and somehow the case became visible to others, found its way into Alex's family circle. A few weeks later, he was pulled off anything client-facing. The luxury car disappeared from Celia's social media. He ran. Celia tried to stay with him, showed up at his place with her trash bags. He turned her away. Too much drama. His family mattered more. She bounced between Taylor's couch, then Brian's, then back to Taylor's after they fought over borrowed money. The friend group completely imploded. Brian started blaming Celia. Ada stopped replying altogether. Taylor finally told her to get her life together and stop using people. The real fallout hit when Brian got called into her company. Being named in divorce filings for coordinating manipulation and affair logistics makes corporate employers nervous. Her texts planning the coffee shop ambush were legally requested records as proof of premeditation. She wasn't fired, but her promotion was delayed indefinitely. Risk management flagged her file. Group chats don't look empowering when a judge reads them out loud. The divorce moved forward. The judge ruled in my favor on everything. I kept the house. I kept my retirement accounts. The joint savings were split 50-50, though there wasn't much left after Celia burned through it. She got her car, her belongings, and the knowledge that the HR stunt didn't save her. Her corporate department collapsed once her reputation followed her. Clients don't rush to hire someone publicly documented as both a cheater and a liar. Professional networks care about character. By the time it was final, I was single. She was broke, friendless, and living in an apartment she could barely afford. I didn't celebrate. I just felt relief. 8 months after the divorce, my life was stable again. The house was mine. My job was secure. I'd started seeing someone new. Alice was easygoing, normal, and didn't have a circle of enablers encouraging self-destruction. We had a date planned that night. I was getting ready when someone started pounding on my front door. I opened it. Celia stood there drunk, mascara streaked down her face, sweatpants, a jacket she looked like she'd been sleeping in. She said she needed to talk. I said no and tried to shut the door. She shoved her foot inside. Just 5 minutes. She'd made mistakes. She knew that. But we could fix things. There was nothing to fix. We were divorced. She said she'd been wrong about everything. Alex, her friends, all of it. I was the only good thing, and she ruined it. She was slurring, barely upright. The smell of cheap alcohol hit me immediately. That's unfortunate. I told her. But I had plans. She asked, the kind that don't include you? She pushed against the door, demanding to know if it was another woman. I told her what I do is none of her business. We're not married. She said she still loved me. I laughed. Loved me enough to cheat for 4 months. Loved me enough to try to get me fired. Yeah, I was really feeling it. She said she'd been confused. They told her she deserved better. I told her believing them was on her. She said she had nowhere to go. Nobody wanted her. Brian wouldn't return her calls. Taylor said she'd burned bridges. Ada blocked her. Sounds like they finally caught on. She was a user. People just don't see it until there's nothing left to take. She broke down completely. Crying, begging, said she'd do anything. Counseling, starting over, being better. I said no. That's when my neighbor, Mr. Harris, stepped outside. Retired postal worker, 73, cared about exactly 2 things, his lawn and peace. He asked, calmly, if she was bothering me. Celia turned toward him, tried to pull herself together, and failed. Mascara smeared everywhere. She said this was between her and her husband. Ex-husband, I corrected. She raised her voice, saying she wasn't leaving until we talked. Mr. Harris didn't raise his. He stood there in his bathrobe like a bouncer. He told her she was creating a disturbance, intoxicated and disorderly on private property. He said he'd already called the police. They'd be there in 15 minutes. Celia's face went white. She asked if we really called the cops on her. Mr. Harris said he called about a public disturbance, shouting, stumbling, harassing a resident. That's how we do things in this neighborhood, he said. We maintain standards. She stared at him in disbelief and said she'd lived here for 4 years, and now you don't. Mr. Harris said evenly, property rights ended with the divorce. You're trespassing. Right on cue. Alice's car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out, took in the scene, and stopped a few feet away, asking if everything was okay. Celia snapped her head toward her, eyes locking in immediately. Who is that? My date, I said. Alice, this is Celia. She was just leaving. Alice nodded politely, but stayed by her car. Clearly reading the room, Celia looked back and forth between us, her expression spinning through shock, anger, and disbelief. You replaced me already. I didn't replace you, I said. I moved on. There's a difference. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. Police are about a few minutes later out. You should go unless you want drunk and disorderly added to your evening. Celia stared at me like she was waiting for me to stop this, to change my mind. This is really it, she said. It was really it 8 months ago. I replied. This is just you catching up. She backed away, nearly lost her balance, then caught herself, called me cold, said I had no empathy, no forgiveness. I'm someone who learned his lesson, I said. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Don't try to destroy someone's career. It's not complicated. Red and blue lights flashed at the end of the street. She saw them and panicked. Fine, I'm leaving. You'll regret this, she said. Doubt it. She stumbled toward her car, an older sedan with a dented bumper. The luxury car era was long gone. She got inside, fumbled with her keys, and finally started the engine. The police cruiser pulled in behind her. 2 officers stepped out. They saw her in the driver's seat, saw how unsteady she was. One knocked on her window. She tried to explain. They asked her to step out. Ran a field sobriety test. She failed. They cuffed her and placed her in the back of the patrol car. One of the officers walked over to me and asked if she'd been bothering me. I told him she was my ex-wife. Showed up drunk. Refused to leave. He asked if I wanted to press charges for trespassing. I looked at Celia sitting in the back seat, head down, mascara smeared everywhere. The same woman who sat in a coffee shop and publicly ended my marriage like it was nothing. No, I said. Just get her out of here. The officer nodded. She's getting a DUI. That's enough for one night. They drove off. Mr. Harris went back inside without another word. I walked over to Alice. Well, that was something. She smiled slightly. That was my past, I said. It won't happen again. She seems memorable, Alice said. She did once, I replied. Then I married her. Alice laughed. Well, I'm glad you're divorced. Otherwise tonight would have been really awkward. It's already awkward, I said. True, she smiled. But at least we'll have a good story over dinner. We left, had a great meal, and laughed at how absurd the whole thing was. Alice didn't pry, didn't try to fix anything. She just accepted that sometimes exes show up drunk, the cops get called, and life moves on. I got home around midnight. The house was quiet. No drunk ex-wife. No neighbor in a bathrobe. Just peace. My phone showed 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. Probably Celia calling from the station. I blocked it. Then I checked my email. A confirmation notice sat at the top. The divorce settlement payment had cleared. She'd finally paid what the judge ordered. It took her 8 months and probably wiped out what little savings she had left. But it was done. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee maker, my table, and my grandfather's pocket watch. Everything I fought to keep. Everything she tried to take. Worth it. Every single bit of it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments.